looks like I can share it. Okay, copied the link. Boom. There we go. Okay, you probably can't have both open because you'll have feedback and stuff between the two. All right. All right, I think we're good. Yes? Sound good? Looks like we're up and running.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You see my comment?
Mm, nope. Hold on. I got like a million different things open here. We are up and running. Yes, I see that. Cool. That's easier if chat shows up right there for me. Then I don't got to worry about all these other things. If you want to kind of keep an eye on that, since I got a bunch of crap open up and all sorts of recording stuff going on. Anyway, hey guys, welcome to another episode of H&H. Sorry for some technical difficulties. Took me a minute to figure out how to get this to work. Anyway, I think we're up and running. I am going to record this our typical way and throw that on YouTube just so people can listen at a later date, even though I know it's on Spreaker. Since we repost everything on YouTube, I figure we'll kind of keep that the same. We figure we kind of switch this up, do a little bit of a live show, and then with that, we're going to kind of talk about the title games, and we figure, those of you that are listening that are here with us live, you can come either call in or type in the chat. If you have an idea of what you want to talk about, or you want to talk about a specific team or a specific run, or really anything you want to talk about, we can go ahead and throw that in chat, or go ahead and give us a call. We use Skype for that. And my username is just my name, Jordan Holtis. You can call in through that. We can add you into here the call, and we can go from there. Otherwise, we're going to break down each of the national championships. We are going to cover D2 a little bit too, and kind of go from there. I think we'll probably start in D2, since we don't really talk a whole lot about that, and we're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. As always, guys, don't want to forget my partner in crime here, HuskerFan26, buddy. How we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. How goes it over yonder?
It's good. We're still kind of messing with weather a little bit. It's windy and cloudy off and on. Our baseball tournament got screwed up, but that's fine. We were 0-3 in it anyway, getting wrecked by just about everybody we played. It's kind of amazing the difference between a club team and a high school team.
I think they might need a new coach.
Yeah. No, you know what? I'm sure you're not alone in that viewpoint either. Anyway, today, guys, we just wrapped up national championships in Wilkinson. So we've already got some firing at D1A, it looked like. And championships are, rankings finalized and everything like that, getting ready to roll over tonight. We'll kind of start in D2 and work our way up as we go. And again, guys, if you want to call in, let us kind of get through the games initially maybe, and then if you guys find something that you kind of want to talk about, regardless of what game it is, go ahead and do that. And if, that way we can kind of get it all together in one sequence. And if we end up having nobody call in, then I guess this will be a little bit of a shorter show. Otherwise, let's kind of dive in here. HuskerFan26 at D2. We had Texas A&M Kingsville playing St. Joseph's. We all know Gators 06 and what he's done at St. Joseph's. I believe he's now got 3 straight, 4 out of the last 5. And he's been stockpiling them quite a bit down there at D2. And he cruised to a victory, 49-17 over Kingsville, who was coached by Strifeman. Also been at his team for quite some time. This is the first time in the national championship. Looks like under his tenure. So, to have made it that far and fall a little bit short, that's probably got to hurt. But at least to have made it, still a great season out of Kingsville. Real quick, just driving down the stats. St. Joseph's, looks like they had a pretty balanced attack. And Kingsville went a little bit heavier pass, but looks like they were not able to complete for anything. They had a 40% completion percent on the day, and had a couple sacks, scrambles, throwaways, so it looks like there was some pressure on there. Quick breaking that down, Husker fan. Do you think, breaking that game, what do you kind of think about the game? What were your thoughts or takeaways from that one?
I would have thought that, Kingsville would have probably gone a little bit more run because that seemed to have been working for them with an average of 5.2 per rush in comparison to 3.1 per pass. So I'm not sure that if they felt that they were behind the eight ball enough to the point where they had to start chucking it in the air or not. But looking at numbers, I don't know what they were at the half, but then looking at the numbers now at the end of it, I think the offensive coordinator might have gone the wrong way with it. Being put under pressure a little bit probably is the reason why they had to try and throw the ball up in the air. But then the quarterback, from the looks of it, he was always under pressure. Two sacks, two throwaways, two scrambles, and that didn't help because the running backs, looking at them individually, they had they had a decent average. 3.8, 4.3, three runs at 4.3. That's more than 12 yards, so that's decent enough to move the ball down the field. In comparison, St. Joseph's, they, like you said, they were balanced, moving the ball both in the air and on the ground. They knew what they were doing, and they played a little bit of, keep away, 32 minutes of time of possession in comparison to, 27. So I'm sure Kings will try to do whatever they need to do to get back to it. Now they've had a taste of it. I'm sure they know how to what areas they need to work on to try and get back there, and hopefully when they get back there, improve their play. Whereas with St. Joseph, they for them, I think they know this is what they play for. They look forward to it every season, like 3 in a row. At that point in time, you know what works for you, and I assume that they'll be back there again next time around. And I bet they are going to be trying to go for like a five pit, because I think the most they've had is four in a row. So they have three already locked up. They've done three before, so I think they might be going for a record of five straight. And with the way things have been going, safe money is on them to do it again with Gators.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And looking at the Final Four, like it looks kind of like D1AA was. I thought D1AA was pretty stacked, a lot of talented, top-heavy teams. It looks kind of be the same here at D2. And Kingsville, real quick, touching on the running it. I kind of agreed with you at first, seeing the 5.2, thinking they should run, but really it looks like that came from receiver runs. He ran twice and had 78 yards, so at a 39.0 average, that's going to really boost up, the running back numbers. Which, I mean, 4.3 isn't terrible for their backup running back. But when you're not completing anything remotely close to 50%, at least, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Maybe a little bit heavier run. And like I said, like you said, I didn't look at half either to know if running maybe wasn't working as well as he wanted. So maybe that's why he kind of went a little bit heavier pass, because he's
Yeah,
down 28-17. I mean, that's not a terrible deficit. 11 points is pretty manageable, so I wouldn't think he would need to panic. And I mean, even into third quarter, I mean, they held their own. So it wasn't even until the fourth quarter that things kind of blew up in their face. And obviously I don't know any adjustments or anything like that, but it was a great game for a long time, and they held their own. They just, in the second half, ended up not being able to get anything done, and that's tough. But again, great season out of Kingsville. They've been, I think this is the first time they've even made it past the quarterfinals under Strifman. So a heck of a season for them. Probably going to be a good Coach of the Year nomination there at D2 for them. But St. Joseph's looks to continue their dominance down there again. I think other than Finlay and obviously one other team, I don't think anyone else has even competed against St. Joseph's down there. So they seem to be having a pretty good dynasty going down there at D2. Do you think anyone will be able to unseat them anytime soon, or do you think they're going to kind of keep rolling as long as Gators at the helm?
I think with Gators at the helm, the Gators are going to keep chomping. So they're going to clasp and then do the Gator roll, and then it's a wrap for whoever's trying to come for them. And as the saying goes, if you come for the king, you best not miss. And Kings will just miss, and now the king is going to be ready for them next time, for whoever comes around next time around. So I think as long as Gator stays down there, he is going to keep bowling and keep breaking up the wins and the national titles. I would want to see him move up and try and compete with a few of the other guys, like come up to, let's say, D1A, go up against your Blitz, Z32s, those guys, your Easies, and JJL over at FSU, at Jason Freeman. Like that for me, could you imagine a conference with all of those guys in it? That would be an interesting conference to see. And I think those guys did something similar to that. I think it was in Yost at D1AA, where it was a conference with AWACS, Jason Freeman. I think Blitz might have been in there, and a few of the other legendary coaches were in there. And every game, as fireworks. Either it was an offensive fireworks show or a defensive fireworks show, but you were guaranteed fireworks. But I think at this point Gators knows what he's doing at D2, so why move up and try and change anything up for him? He knows what is working for him, so why not just keep going at that, rack up those NCs and continue building on the legend that is himself.
Right. Well, and you got a couple coaches in there trying to, maybe, make some noise. At least the coaches that do D1s, Schooley's down in there, uh, True Devils down in there. They're both new at their team, so give them some time to see if they can maybe do it. But I'm kind of with you as far as I think Gator's done about as much as he can at D2, and I get, he's been on the show before. That's the level he's kind of found his niche, and he kind of likes. He likes it being down there. And I know he's moving up in other worlds, kind of exposing himself to those upper levels. So I think maybe after a couple more seasons, maybe where he's got that in other worlds, the experience of the upper levels, I could see him maybe making the move up in Wilkinson. So hopefully in a couple seasons he'll make that move up and we can have him join us in the D1A AA ranks, because a coach like that would even make that title race, extend it, and I'm sure he'd have his team competing in no time.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, quality is quality no matter what level you are playing at. If you're a quality coach, the quality will always come through and it'll carry you at the end of the day.
And that's fair enough. I think so too. Let's shift gears, bump up here to D1AA. Like I said before, our Final Four, I thought at D1AA was pretty stacked. It was the top four guest-rated rosters, ironically enough, coming in here. And today we had Indiana State play in Dayton. Indiana State ended up getting the W 44-27. What were your takeaways from this game, or what did you notice about this game?
I know a few seasons ago, throwing the ball was all the rave, and everybody was saying, that's the way the engine is now going, and this is the future. And this game showed me that, not necessarily, not necessarily. Oh, jeez, I can't speak no more.
English is hard. It's all right.
Hey man, it's a second language for me, so please forgive me, okay? But this game showed you, like, if you run a balanced offense, you can get the job done. But at the same time, your defense needs to stand up and be counted, because 3 sacks for 17 yards, they couldn't move the ball on the ground.
Oh, hang on. We got a call. Hold on. How do I merge? Oh, I think we lost it. Can you hear me, Husker fan?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, I couldn't hear you when that call came in. So we might have an issue. And it does look like I do only have that 15 minutes. So it's saying I need to upgrade my account or we're going to run out of broadcasting time.
Really?
I guess. I'm not about to enter my credit card in while we're live. So we might have to pause this and do a second show, everyone, just to forewarn you here in just a minute. We won't stop. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can answer this call. Hang on. Oh, time out. How come I can't merge? Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Hey, who are we talking to?
Your mom.
What's up, CJ?
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Pretty soft. We're still figuring out everything. Obviously, it's our first time, so.
Well, first time for everything. Can everybody hear me okay?
I think so.
Verification in the chat that my beautiful voice is being broadcast to all
What
the
is
world.
that shrill that's coming over the earphones?
There we go. How you doing, Husker fan?
Trying to stay alive.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Are we though?
So, I'll be honest with you, I'm calling in, but I did not see the second half of the championship game. I saw, Jordan, where you were up at halftime, but didn't see what happened in the second half. So I'm assuming, based on what I saw, that you were victorious.
Yes, yep. We got a 44-27 win today.
Good Lord.
You lost the second half.
I did lose the second half by 7 points. But
Nobody cares about
the way we were game planning, I was worried if it was close to half. The way these two games were going, we've both been like tearing it up in the second half. So I was really worried with adjustments that things were gonna go south if we didn't have a decent lead. So I was a little worried.
Well,
Hmm.
we just lost the live broadcast.
Yeah, I know. So CJ, I'm assuming you guys
That's
got the
streaming.
basic pro feature, yes, for your Spreaker.
The one I use is like $20 a month.
Okay. Oh, you used one of the upgraded ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because I'm looking at this now and I saw it counting down when I started and I was like, oh, maybe it'll reset, but it did. We did lose that one. I did start a second one, which I'll post the link to. But yeah, we'll have to upgrade that before we do any more of these if we do it, because I wasn't sure if that was legitimate or if
Yeah.
we were gonna have issues.
Yeah, you have to go with one of the packages. I think the one I've got, the $20 one, is like the cheapest one
Okay.
available. But there's no time limit on it. The main difference is you have different levels of storage of how many old
Right.
podcasts you can keep. But I mean, like I've been doing it for over 3 years. I think I'm maybe at halfway with the
Okay.
storage. So yeah.
Okay. And I saw that, and there was a couple options. I saw you could do 45 minutes. I think
Mhm.
the other one was like 3 hours, and then yeah, the unlimited or something like that. So yeah, we'll have to definitely look into that. Maybe for sure do the 45-minute one. I don't expect to do too much longer than that, even though our shows are typically about an hour. We could probably make that work. But I got a second one going, so we'll kind of get some more of this in here,
Cool.
CJ. Um,
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about? What do you want to bring in?
Well, I want to ask you, okay, because here's the thing about, I don't know, maybe been a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. I know you and I were talking, and you had kind of been mentioning that as far as Wilkinson was concerned, like you had kind of plateaued and you were having trouble getting kind of over that next hump and starting to win some national titles. But I mean, I'm looking at things now, and if you're not winning the national title, even every season, like you've been one of the favorites. This has gone off to about 5 seasons, or I guess no, going back to season like 148. Like you're right there with everybody if you're not winning it. Now it's your second time in the past 4 years. What's the biggest difference? Is it recruiting? Is it there's less coaches now? Is it you've changed your game planning? What are you doing differently now that say maybe you were doing about a year or so ago where you were kind of having some struggles?
So I will say, the world population dropping a little bit did. I will say that probably did help a little bit. I mean, I don't have Pete in here trying to compete
Mm-hmm.
with him every season. Nitros is out, so I don't have
That's a
him.
menace to all of us.
Right, yeah, yeah. I mean, trying to go through Pete, that's almost impossible. Nitros is gone. We have JD Driscoll, who kind of, I feel like, sort of filled that void as well. Another great coach, but you don't have as many as you did before. But I did do some tweaking to my game plan. I did a lot of formation work, a lot of discussing with several coaches about the way they're working their formations. So I've changed the way I do my formations. I've had a lot of one-on-one sessions with Nitros. I've even called him on the phone and talked to him a little bit to get some ideas. And that was probably the biggest thing. And even this season, I was telling Husker fan earlier, I had kind of reverted on how my depth chart was working on my defense. After the Youngstown State game, I changed it to the way I was before. And I mean, I had 4 straight shutouts. I know they were Sims, but then I didn't give up more than 27 points to anybody throughout the playoffs. And you go look at the first 3 or 4 humans I'm playing, and everybody scored over 30 points. So I've gone back and changed the way I've done my depth charts, and I've changed my formations and the way I'm setting it up and giving my quarterback a couple of easier reads, kind of dumbing the game down for him a little bit, which is something I had not been doing previously.
Mm, gotcha.
So I mean, that's really it. It's just a couple adjustments, and like that depth chart one for me this season was a huge one that surprised me with the difference that it made.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I was thinking it was a pretty competitive Final Four as far as looking at the coaches that had gotten in there. Um, and then to see you just kind of roll through everybody like that, I mean, I thought you had a great chance of winning, but I mean, you just crushed a good Georgetown team, and then you beat a Dayton team that had just beaten Northern Iowa, and I mean, you beat them by a pretty good margin too, as I'm looking at it now. So,
Yeah, and I was, and he beat Northern Iowa, who beat me twice. For what
yeah.
no, Jay Hunters definitely has my number, so I guess a little tidbit for anybody who wants to try to figure it out. He obviously has it figured out. I
Mm-hmm.
have adapted a little bit, and I think I have an idea for him next time we play. But yeah, the Georgetown game surprised me more than anything. I think, Dayton, I expected it to be pretty high scoring on both fronts, but I think we kind of got a lucky first half, which kind of helped build that lead. But the Georgetown second half was definitely a surprise for me. I did not expect that one to get out of hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So here's a
at least,
question for you guys. Well, you go ahead, Husker fan. You go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
I was going to say the Indiana State Georgetown game shows that not only do you need to have great talent on your roster, but
Mm-hmm.
game planning can go a long way because you have to put the guys in the right places, in the right situations to get the most out of them to put yourself in a position to win the game. Because that Georgetown roster, I think, hands down, is the best roster in D1AA. But then they came up against Indiana State and they were shown up to be not ordinary, but then at least it wasn't their day.
Yeah. Well, and you are right, but I mean, like, even if you took, I mean, we could say Georgetown's the best roster, okay, by anybody in 1AA, but the I think the key though is that the difference between the best roster and the second best roster, even if top to bottom the best one is that much better than the second best, it's still inches as far as individual ratings are concerned. I mean, like,
Right.
if one team's got a quarterback rated like a 71.5, on guess, another one's got a quarterback rated of a 70, like one is legitimately better than the other, but that second best quarterback is still pretty darn good. So like that, that's kind of the thing I've always thought about the playoffs, even in some of these more like emptier worlds, like you have to bring you have to game plan to win those games because once you get to the final four, final eight teams, everybody's talented. Like everybody's got good players,
Oh yeah.
um, which is interesting because like I haven't really paid it. I mean, this season in particular, like I really didn't pay very much attention to what was going on, but I am looking right now at 1A. So Jason Freeman has now won 5 of the past 6 championships. The one he didn't win was season 150, and I recall him being upset that he wasn't included in that championship game. So it was a little bit of a controversy that he didn't even make it.
Right.
So, Husker fan, you're more involved in 1A than I am, obviously. But what the heck is going on? Because I don't think we've seen a dynasty quite that dominant since Nortonis at Penn State a little while ago.
Well, what happened is when Texas came open, a bunch of people decided that, well, a few seasons before, the 4 seasons before Texas came open, a few people decided not to have great resumes and great runs, great seasons, and that let Jason just walk through into Texas. We already know he's a great game planner, and then you put him in a prime location for recruiting, in a prime conference, which is always going to help him with his strength of schedule. Now, from the get-go, it was going to be a disaster for everybody else
Right.
Yeah,
because
you
he's
put any coach in a great recruiting area, especially. I mean, really, his only competition recruiting is probably blitz, and they've even admitted they have a pretty cordial relationship. So, really, he doesn't have any recruiting competition. So he's just going to walk away more or less with who he wants. That's yeah, a company with great game planning. It's going to be impossible to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't let Nitros hear you say that Blitz is the only competition because I'm pretty sure Nitros is throwing everything
I
into
just
that
mean in terms of recruiting.
Oh yeah, even in terms of recruitment, because Nitros is over at A&M, and then you have Cron at Texas Tech, and we all know he's a bit kamikaze when it comes to his recruiting strategy. So I think the real competition, like you said, it will be Blitz, but those other two guys, I'm sure they'll be trying to nick a few guys off him. Same thing with MP over at LSU, even though he's a bit far away, but I'm pretty sure he's trying to get a few guys out of Houston and come his way.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, it's interesting. Jason is 115-4 since season 146. Um, he has in that span of time, he's won 5 championships, and two of the 3 times he's missed the championship game. Uh, one of those he was undefeated. The other one he went 13-1 and won the Big 12. And both of those you could have made the argument he should have been in the championship game. So
Right.
we're really a couple uh, wish ranking mishaps away from 7 consecutive championships from him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on to win like the next five or so national title games. Because I think the only thing that can stop him is are the GD gods screwing with him.
Yeah.
If it's not for that, I think he'll just keep going and then staking up the championships. The only other thing, like the only way the GD gods screw with him is through his strength of schedule, but people maybe not scheduling, which will be worst move to go. Like you want to test yourself against the better coaches. If you feel that your team is at full strength and you can really give it a good go, might as well try and get him on your schedule and see where you stack up, because that will allow you to also see where the holes are in your own team and maybe
Hmm.
expose a few chinks in his own armor, which will be good for everybody. But I know, with all that said, Jason, don't you even think about sending a challenge my way, because I'm good.
Right. Well, CJ, but let's go a quick touch on your team. You've been at Furman now for a little bit. You had that great, fantastic season a couple seasons ago. A little bit of a rebuild, which I think you even admitted. That quarterback that took you there, that team that took you there, you were kind of worried. Maybe we won't be this same. How long do you think, or what do you think it's going to take to get Furman back competing at, I guess you could quote unquote the next level? You've still made Final Four, quarterfinals, and national championship
Hmm.
3 out of the 4 seasons you've been there. What do you think it's going to take, or are you just a season out waiting for that quarterback to grow?
Um, well, quarterback situation will probably be good next season. The problem is we've got offensive line and linebackers to rebuild. So we're losing, I think, losing 3 offensive line starters next season. I'm losing, I believe, and like I think most people know, like my linebackers are a little bit crazy. So I mean, I do a 3-4, so I'm always starting 4, but 6 are getting legitimate playing time. So I'm losing 3 of those as well, and they're all really talented. So next season we have our holes. It'll probably be 2 seasons before we're really back to being in that final 4 mix potentially. I mean, it's interesting. Chetty built the team
Right.
a while back, and then he left, and then in one season, somebody by the name of Majik came in, and I don't know what the heck he was doing with recruiting, but I mean, like, none of these guys had that much potential, and I think he had to fill a class of about 16. So, whenever you have a roster like that, it doesn't appear in the short term to hurt you, which is why I was able to win that championship. But in the long term, when I've got guys right now, who are juniors and seniors in redshirt seniors, and we're trying to rebuild that. I mean, I've got a redshirt senior quarterback who should have never been on this team to begin with. He's not very talented. His potential was very low. He doesn't have very good work ethic. Like, I don't know why he was ever recruited for that team. So but I mean, like, he's been taking up a roster spot because the issue is if you cut him and he's not a freshman, then you get a larger prestige hit. So he's been taking up a roster spot for the past 3 seasons. So this is the first time I'm able to actually recruit without any of his old guys taking up roster spots. So I've been kind of rebuilding the roster a little bit. I will say Duke and UNC, I kind of jumped down and both snatched an offensive lineman I had this past recruiting season. So that hurt a little bit. But I think in a couple seasons we'll be competing, and I mean, I do really like. I think the thing I'm probably most excited about is in 2 seasons, my quarterback rotation is going to be absolutely prime. I mean, I've got uh, one redshirt freshman quarterback who's absolutely amazing, a redshirt sophomore quarterback who's equally as good, and then I've got a quarterback I just redshirted this year, and he will by far be the best one-double-A quarterback I've ever had, maybe I've ever seen. So, getting the quarterbacks is one thing. The biggest question for me is, can I get the talent to put around them, the right running backs, the right receivers, give them the right offensive line, and then a defense that won't screw it up if we get down.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you told me about your quarterback once. We were talking a little bit about it, and Baker looks really fantastic. I'm with you. I think Baker's going to be really great. Simmons, I assume, has pretty good potential if you're so excited about him. Obviously, as a freshman, you can't really tell a whole lot just yet. But yeah, I would agree. You got really great quarterbacks lined up there. Your running backs look pretty solid for sure next year. Your freshmen, they still probably need a year or two to grow. Your wide receivers already look pretty solid. So, like you said, I think your
Tell you,
defense is gonna.
Keon Simmons will be a household Wilkinson name in just a few seasons.
All right,
This kid, he came in, he was a 58.5 guess rating. He has very high potential. His work ethic is a 68. He's already up to a 63 guess rating. Like, if you look at his progression this season, it's been absolutely insane. So, I mean, the weird thing about it is by his senior season, and no, well, okay, I'll put it out there. I am going to go ahead and make an excuse for his senior season. That's going to be about the time my kid is due to be born. So it may not be the best season, but I'm going to tell you, I'm putting in an all-pass offense with him in there, and his numbers are going to be through the roof. So
there you go.
I'm defending it.
That's all right. Making calls that works. I mean, if you got faith in it and you know he's going to be great, you might as well. As long as you got a couple tools around him, which looks like you've already got a good base on that, you should be good to go. And then it's like you said, your defense looks like it needs a little bit of retooling this year, but again, by the time those guys are a little bit older, should be pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've been I don't know how much you guys have talked to J9, but I've been testing out his theory with defensive linemen, which has been really interesting. So he doesn't ever recruit a pure defensive lineman. He recruits linebackers who he can convert to defensive linemen. And I've actually found some success with it, not as much as I would have hoped. But I mean, we get these defensive linemen, and you can look at a couple of them. The one I've got graduating has speed of 79, and I've got another one on there who's a junior who has speed of 86. And it does seem to actually really influence both sacks and tackles for a loss, and it also seems to have an effect on the run game.
In-
Um,
Interesting because I noticed that either at a J or somebody, I don't remember his J, must have been J, because I did notice that I like looked at guests and it showed he had I think two or three defensive linemen was on. I'm like, what's the scoop here? He's got more than that. And I went and looked on his roster. I'm like, he's got six. What's going on here? And then I saw that and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they were all super fast, but they were young, so I couldn't really tell. At the time they were young, so for me playing him, I didn't see a difference. I'm like, okay, cool, they're fast, whoop de doo, but they were freshmen, so they didn't have an impact. So that's good to hear that. I know it's been talked about. Maybe even making linebackers go to defensive linemen where they get that speed bump and things like that. So interesting concept there, and you say it has been working for you.
Yeah, well, and I don't like if there's a good defensive lineman next to me, like I'm not going to ignore him. I've always been a big believer that even if you put in a system, that system needs to be fluid and you need to be flexible with it, not completely rigid. But I mean, if you look, Charles Henson, he's a redshirt freshman defensive lineman. He's right now rated a 70. He's got speed of an 84. So and he's got good technique. He's got good elusiveness. His tackling's good too. He's got good strength. Like, he's going to be a sack machine by the time he graduates. So, I mean, I've been kind of fooling around with that on defense and just been toying with a couple of different things. So it's just mostly been just trial and error on that side of things. So we'll see if we can knock off the great Indiana State again in a couple of seasons.
I don't know if we're the this year maybe we're the pedestal just since we won it, but I don't think we're still one of the premier programs. I think I still have a little bit of work to do, but I do like the success we're having. And sure, if you want to go for us, we'll be ready for you.
That's good to hear.
All right, CJ.
Well, hey, thank you guys for letting me call in.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Before you go, this defensive linebacker thing. So you're telling, if you switch the linebacker to a defensive lineman, does he now start developing as a D lineman, or does he keep developing as a linebacker?
As a defensive lineman.
Mhm.
Yeah, as soon as you make that switch, he starts developing as a defensive
Yep.
lineman. But it is interesting you bring it up, because what you can do is you can have a player play linebacker all through his freshman year. And then towards the end of his freshman year, at the end of his freshman year, you can then flip him to a defensive lineman. So he did spend his freshman year improving as a linebacker, but then you flip him over to a defensive lineman so he doesn't lose that work ethic and the rest of those stats. And so you can get creative with it, is what I'm saying.
There you go. Yeah, and I haven't switched a whole lot of positions, but so that's a good one to see there, and you'll have to keep keep me posted kind of on that because that is an intriguing one.
Yeah, no, it's been intriguing. I mean, J9's kind of the mastermind behind it. I've just been following his advice on it, and it seems to have some merit to it. So,
Nice, good deal. Well, best of luck to you and Furman. I expect you guys to be making quite a bit of noise here as things progress, and a shout out for your conference here. Bomber does need some competition there in the SoCon. He's kind of just
yeah,
dominating it.
please.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think I have lost a conference game here, and I'm not saying that to brag. No, I haven't. 9-0 every single season. But seriously, somebody needs to come over into the Southern Conference, preferably go to the other divisions, so we can make this thing a little bit fun. Because conference play does get a bit boring.
I imagine. I think at one point the SoCon was kind of rising, and then just everybody left, and you guys just have a couple teams. And I mean, not to diss anybody else, but as far as upper echelon coaches, it does seem to be just you kind of by yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for keeping the podcast going.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you on. Thanks for joining, calling in.
Yeah, man. All right. Bye, guys.
All right, have a good day.
Take it easy.
I don't know how to bring you back here. There we go. All right. I don't know any easier way to do that. We'll have to figure that out. Again, sorry for all the technical issues with things, guys. We'll kind of figure this out if we do another live show. See if we can iron some things out. Um, so thank you again, CJ, for calling in. Those of you guys who are still listening, again, if you guys want to call in, more than welcome to take your calls. Sorry I have to keep switching. It's probably hard to keep up at this point because we do keep switching. I'll probably just kind of keep the rest of the stuff going, and if you end up calling in, then we can go about it that way. Um, did you have anything else as far as the D1AA national championship is concerned, Husker fan?
Well, I think at this point in time, everybody is expecting me to interview you as the national champion for D1AA. So I hope you are ready because I do have a few questions for you.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
We need you to explain how you feel about defeating JD Driscoll because everybody thought he was, including myself, he was on the way to starting a dynasty at Georgetown, and you just showed up and nipped that in the bud. So we need you to explain yourself because I'm pretty sure some people bet some money on that game and lost it. So you need to explain yourself to them.
Well, so Georgetown and I think we've played, honestly, I think since my first national title run in season 148 or whatever it was, 148, yeah, I think him and I have played since that day, every season in the playoffs. And so we've gotten to kind of know each other pretty well. Most of our games are pretty close. Last year, I think I had I think I actually had a pretty decent lead. It honestly might have been like 20 points or so. And I didn't have the defense, and like I talked about with CJ, I did have that other depth chart in there, a young defense also, and he just tore us apart in the second half, and he ended up winning and going on and winning the national title. This year I felt a little more confident in our defense just because they had that year of development. I liked those depth chart adjustments that I had made. But he's always a fantastic coach. I was kind of holding my breath the entire time. So I was, like I said, I was very surprised how that second half played out. But Georgetown and I have, we've grown to know each other pretty well, and I think this is only really the second time we played that it kind of got out of hand. Otherwise, it's been pretty close. So just kind of got the breaks this year. The adjustments. He thought my adjustments were a little better than what he did. So it just kind of put me over the top, I think, this season. But I don't think it's indicative of our coaching or our talent necessarily. It just happened to be the breaks, and maybe just a misguess by one side or the other.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. And again, like I think I mentioned this earlier, like that game for me showed like you gotta have the talent, and then on top of the talent, you gotta be able to game plan well and make adjustments well, and try and exploit whatever holes you see in the other team's roster. Because I think that's probably the easiest way of going about it. Because if it's a close game, probably comes down to talent and how you exploit those holes. Because Georgetown roster is pretty loaded, and your roster is pretty decent on its own. Now we move on to this game, today's game against Dayton. Like I don't know if at the half you could say okay, it's only 24-0. They still the whole second half to go. Adjustments could be made, shut down one side, and get things done out the gate. Were you a bit worried when Dayton started out the gate with the touchdown and pretty early on? Were you a bit worried when you were watching that Whiscast?
For the second half,
Yeah,
yeah, I wasn't terribly worried because I thought to myself, I was like, okay, you don't need to panic until they get at least 14, because we had 24 points. That's three scores at least, or excuse me, four scores at least. So I wasn't terribly worried at that point. But I was like, if he gets it within 10, then I'm definitely worried for that fourth quarter, because like I said, the way I looked at how both Dayton and myself were game planning in the second half, and we were both more or less just kind of, that's where we were kind of making our adjustments, and that's where we were blowing teams out in the playoffs, as we were both making fantastic adjustments. So I was like, I need to have a pretty significant lead going into that fourth quarter, otherwise things could get pretty hairy. And so I wasn't really worried about 7. I was, if he'd have got 14 or so, I would have been pretty worried. But I was pretty confident in my the way my offense worked in both times we played him, that I thought I might be able to get some points up, and we did go toe to toe more or less in the second half. So I wasn't necessarily worried right out the gate when he got that 7. But had he gotten probably one more score unanswered, I would have been definitely a little bit worried at that point.
well, what did you find to be the key in this game in eight and a half? What did you see in his game plan that you were like, okay, I need to stop him from doing this?
Well, so in the second half, well, the first half I came out and he's been pretty pass heavy. I did notice against Northern Iowa he brought up quite a bit more run, but I was kind of banking on that he was going to stick to what he knew. So I knew I needed to stop the run. And in the second half, honestly, I was kind of sitting here. I was like, is he going to do what he did against Northern Iowa, or is he going to sit here and do what he's done? And so I kind of tried to shoot somewhere kind of in the middle and hope that I could get, the luck of the draw on the sims, and we'd stop certain plays when we needed to. And it actually, yeah, honestly, had it been a closer first half and maybe a couple minutes longer, that game would have been completely different, because he did start tearing us up pretty well in the second half. He had 58 yards at half. He ended up with over 300 and something. So he definitely figured out a way to adjust, and obviously me being a little more conservative on that side didn't work. So I was definitely worried in the second half on defense, as far as whether I had adjusted enough or whether I adjusted too far.
Yeah, because I think he might have gone a little bit more to his wide receivers in the second half. Because looking at their numbers right now, they seem to be able to catch the ball a bit better than the running backs, who went 8 of 19, whereas with the wide receivers, I think they had a better time of it. So do you think that means that your DBs, where they need to be upgraded a little bit, or are you happy with those guys?
Well, so I'm not losing the corners that I had against him. I'm not losing any of those guys, so I'm okay with how they performed. I actually debated doing some depth chart adjusting in the second half, because I noticed certain matchups were getting kind of exploited, but it wasn't enough for me to kind of end up making that change and switching the depth charts to the way that I thought I might need to. So I did end up leaving the depth chart, and he ended up crushing it. So I mean, obviously, anytime a wide receiver is going to tear you apart as to the extent that he did, I'm not going to be happy with that. But at the same time, I'm like, if it's only one receiver that's tearing me up, I can probably deal with that. And Weeks was having a good first half too, so it's not like he didn't all of a sudden explode. He was doing well at the first half. I just was trying to figure out if we would be able to stop him well enough in the second half to get it done. And thankfully we were, at least enough to keep everybody else off the board enough to that his numbers weren't too detrimental.
Mm. Now, on the other side of the ball, what do you see in his defense that you try to exploit using your guys? Because it looks like you also went a little bit heavy with your wide receivers, and you didn't hit any of your running backs. You were just wide receivers and tight ends. Or could you explain, like, what's the theory behind that? What's the thinking behind that?
Right. So the first time we played, I kind of brought out some of the same stuff I had against him in the first game, and I actually both my receivers had phenomenal games against Dayton the first time, and I actually rushed for over 200 yards. So I was like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We put up 71 points on Dayton the first time. Let's come out, kind of run a similar game plan, make some adjustments on what maybe we didn't like necessarily from the first game, and roll with that and see how we're looking at half. And the results were actually pretty, obviously 24-0 were pretty good, and I enjoyed where they were. His defense as a whole was pretty young. And the first game, I think I tried to bring out, get it to my running back and tight end a little bit more, because my tight end is pretty solid and my running backs are okay, and they're pretty big part of my offense for the most part. Even though I do run trips, I do like to get them in the mix. But his linebackers are shutting us down with that 3-4, and we were running successfully. So I'm like, well, let's just kind of save them, let them run the ball. Let's not worry about throwing to them. Let them focus on running, limit those fumbles as best we can, and just kind of get the rest to the wide receivers who were successful in game one, relatively successful again today, and just see if that works and try to keep it balanced because, I mean, that's kind of hard to game plan for one way or another, in my opinion. So,
No, that makes sense. And what was the thinking behind going fully balanced? 51 pass attempts to 51 rush attempts. That's almost as balanced I mean, you go 50-50, but that's pretty close enough.
well,
What
and
was the
some of
thinking
that
behind
comes
it?
out to how the engine simulated. At the first half, it was actually pretty even as well, and the way the game plan was set up, it actually wasn't supposed to be quite so even. Um, I did make some adjustments in the second half to try to ensure that that balance would be maintained since I did like the success it was getting. So I did tweak some stuff there. But yeah, like I said, I just liked the results that were coming from both the wide receivers and the running back, and I didn't want to go too heavy one way or another in case he had adjusted, to try to stop one facet and hope he could get the breaks on the other or vice versa. So I tried to keep it balanced so that he couldn't maybe get a lock on anything specifically in the game plan.
Now, at the half, were you a bit surprised by what the score was?
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I didn't expect us to be with our offenses the way they were and how we had both been game planning. I expected it to be pretty close. And I think that it's kind of the same story last year against Georgetown at half. I didn't expect us to have a lead either there, but that's sometimes that's the way it goes. And so I was just really trying to focus on, well, we're not out of the woods yet by my book, and obviously Dayton's offense, who's been scoring over 60 points and just about in a lot, over 60 points per game and scoring quite a bit throughout the playoffs. I was like, well, we can't sit on this, regardless of where we're at. Even with 58 yards of offense, that looks fantastic. And clearly, I'm glad I didn't just try to sit on it because he put up over 300 yards or just about 300 yards in just one half. So I knew his offense was potent. And I was pretty much just banking on my defense being able to get enough stops and my offense continuing to find success to be able to carry out in the second half, even if it did, like it did, kind of turn into a shootout.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you did lose the second half, so props to Dayton and his adjustment
Oh
at
yeah,
the
his
end.
just his adjustments were amazing.
Now the question is, what are the odds that you come back next season and you defend your title?
Well, so according to guess, we had the number one, number two quarterbacks. We're losing the number one guy, so I have number two coming back, who I assume will be number one or definitely number two again next season. We're losing our really good tight end. We're losing, according to guess, the number one wide receiver. So we'll be down a little bit as far as offense goes, but I still think we have quite a bit of talent there. I'll have three junior running backs, so that'll be nice. And then defensively, I lose one defensive back and a couple linebackers, so nothing crazy there. So, I think we got a decent shot. I don't think we're a lot of what carried us, especially in those big games initially with my defense the way it was our offense. I think our offense kind of mellowed out as the season went, but our defense got better, so that was kind of more where I want to be. So I think if we can continue to play the way we need to be, I like our chances. My defense should be pretty seasoned next season, and then accompany that with some pretty good, offensive guys as far as playmakers and at quarterback. I think we'll be okay. Our offensive line might be a little bit younger than we were this year, and Dayton did get quite a bit of pressure on us. So if we can figure out a way to kind of keep the holes on the offensive line down, and find some guys to step into those places for a couple of those key offensive playmakers, I think we'll be okay. I never really honestly think I have a national championship team. I felt pretty decent about this team having a shot at making quarterfinals, and then when the brackets came out, I really liked where we were with that bracket. Um, but I don't ever really necessarily think we're going to be a national championship team. But I do think we have a pretty solid core coming back. But obviously Northern Iowa seems to have my number, so we got to figure that out. Georgetown's always going to be tough. Dayton will be right back up there again next year. Furman's going to be growing again, getting better. So there's going to be a lot of, Youngstown State's going to be good too. So we got a lot of competition. So it all kind of comes down and to how the sim works out, who's able to game plan when, and things like that. But I do like our chances of at least having a pretty solid playoff run again next season.
Yeah, nice. Well, coach, congratulations in Dayton. You guys had a great season. Just came up a little bit short, but you can text us that the second half adjustments, those are always great. You might need to make those your first half game plans instead of just waiting until it's the second half. But I bet, like you say, everybody who made it to the final four, there's a high likelihood that you guys will be back again and back at it in the final four sometime next season, which will be interesting because I think then it become like what the third season in a row where we have a few guys from the previous season final four
Yeah, I
getting
think we
back
had
there.
it was two seasons ago and 3 seasons ago we had three of the four Final Four. Last year was actually quite a bit different. I think Georgetown might have been the only repeat team. I think from the previous season, and then this year obviously we had Dayton repeat, Georgetown repeat, and then I came back in, so we had a little bit of difference. But it definitely does seem to be consistently maybe I don't know 4 to 5 teams that are right there in the final couple days of playoffs. So waiting for a couple people that are still rebuilding to kind of get their teams up, which I think we're pretty close to. So we'll see how that goes
Yeah, it should be an interesting upcoming season.
for sure.
Now let's switch gears and move up to D1A. Start off with, you know what? Let's wait until the end for the national title game. Let's look at the level 5 games. Wyoming at the half, they had me buzzing. I was
I
like,
yeah, he was
Kansas.
too.
But then I knew Kansas would get things sorted out and talk to his boys, sit them down, and give them a proper pep talk. But they were rolling in the first half, and I was so excited. And then the second half started, and Kansas and his boys showed up, and I was deflated.
Yeah, I actually hadn't even looked at these in the second half yet too much. Obviously I was kind of checking out my game, seeing how things were doing, and then just trying to get things figured out for the show. But I hadn't seen that finalized. I was surprised too when I saw that at half. I was like, oh, we might get some cool upsets. And I think most of them played out the way they were at half. That was a close one. And we expected Kinsey to do it, do what he did. I guess even if it was closer than expected, I think that first half kind of helped keep Wyoming pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
But he did what we thought. We just knew there was a lot of talent for a mid-major to kind of hang up with. But I mean, props to Wyoming again. If I were on the Coach of the Year committee still, he'd have my nomination. Finishing still top 10, hung with an elite, had an elite a lead over the elite at the half. I mean, that's just a fantastic season. But again, it kind of came, I think, down to the talent at the end because Red Hat knows how to game plan, so it's not that necessarily. But I just think the talent of Notre Dame overcame everything in the second half, and it was just too much for Wyoming to hang on to. But a great game right there. Probably the best one of the level fives, other than the next one with Ohio State and LSU.
Now that for me, once I saw LSU in the half at the half, I fully expected MP and these guys to just keep their foot on the throttle, keep their foot on the back eye neck, and finish the job and get it done. But I guess it was not to be because Roxy gave his guys a heck of a pep talk. I think he might have fed them some Popeye spinach or some kind of something. There must have been something extra in the Gatorade that they had at the half because they came out swinging in the second half and they just decided to show up, especially in the fourth quarter where they managed to hold the Tigers to only 3 points, while they themselves were putting up 17 points. And I think this whole season I've been singing praises of Roxy and what he has been able to do in the last few seasons. But I think last year he made it to the national title game. Then this time around, a level 5 ball game, and without the one loss earlier on in the season, I think he might have been in with a shot at getting back to the national title game against Jason again. So he has things figured out over at Ohio State. So I think he has thrown the gauntlet down for Kensei and Otonis and Allen over at Michigan to try and come up and actually challenge him, be it in recruiting or at winning games in the conference. Because on the recruiting trail, I bump into him every now and again, and every time I bump into him, he leaves me blue and black, bruised. So I now know to avoid him unless he decides to come down into Tennessee, which is something he hasn't done. We usually bump into each other in neutral territory, and I always know to go back where I come from. But MP, things didn't go well for him this time around in the postseason because I don't know how we managed to beat his UCLA team yesterday, and I was like, I probably had his eye on this level five ball game, and then today he lost that, so it's a bit probably a bit of a disappointing weekend for him in Wilkinson.
Well, and yeah, I mean, this was an interesting game for the fact of that you had Roxy, who was, like you said, went to the national championship last year, been really hot as far as a coach lately, and then you had LSU and MP Mershon, who came in really smoking hot this season, kind of came out of left field and surprised a bunch of people. So a couple coaches who recently been on fire, Roxy looking to try to re-get that and come away with some kind of hardware, and LSU who finally got some hardware and looking to cap off a fantastic season. I mean, what a game by both of them. You know what I mean? To have
Yeah,
a 10-point lead at half, and then to just be able to to fall short by 4 points. The stats look pretty dang even. They actually did pretty well on third down. Neither, or well, I think better, but neither one really did all that great on third down. And time of possession was even. Like, I mean, just about everything in this game is even. That was a fantastic game. Unfortunately, there has to be a loser in what is sports and in football in general. But a great game by those two. Hats off to MP Mershon on that season at LSU. Absolutely fantastic. And Roxy, with a nice little cap, nice little consolation prize to come away with a bowl win after not winning the conference.
yeah, definitely. I think it might have just come down to the fact that probably Roxy has been recruiting a little bit better talent over at Ohio State than MP, and that might have been what it came down to in the fourth quarter. That the depth and the talent level once you got into each other's defensive benches, that might have been the difference in this game.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. The next two bowl games, we'll just briefly touch on them and then talk on the national championship a little bit. Bama just kind of they really held their own against Washington. I was kind of surprised the final was so lopsided. I did expect Lions fan to be kind of holding that a little bit closer. Um, Bama's obviously proven a little bit have a couple weaknesses on the season. Washington looks like they weren't quite able to exploit that. Tough loss there. And then UConn, you kind of touched on it, I think, when we had the last show, saying South Florida was coming out the gate, ready to punch UConn in the mouth. They were pretty upset about that loss. Definitely proved that halftime lead was pretty significant. Finished by a 30, finished with a 30-point margin. So another pretty convincing win there. And then this national championship, and I mean, still great seasons by obviously Lions fan in Washington or Connecticut. Those were both, or Washington and Connecticut. Sorry, I don't know what I said, but Washington and Connecticut. Both of you had great seasons. Nothing to try not to take away from that or anything. Just the margin of victories wasn't quite there. But you guys had great seasons nevertheless. And then this national championship, I guess I'm gonna have to quit picking against the horns. I feel like that obviously that should make sense anyway as a Texas fan. I just thought the way Florida State kind of came out of the ACC championship with a little bit of momentum. Texas had kind of looked like they had figured things out. I kind of thought maybe we'd have things, pretty close game for sure either way. But I mean, we touched on it briefly earlier when CJ called in that Texas kind of looks like they're going to continue to roll. A great coach with a great recruiting area, not a whole lot of competition. Um, you know, what he did to Florida State and what Florida State's been able to do all season, I think, is just evident that Texas right now almost seems to be in a league of their own. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, we without a doubt, Jason has been. I feel like he's Thanos with all the Infinity Stones and the Gauntlet, and he's just snapping through anybody who shows up in front of him and just running through everybody because, like you said, he has the talent and he has the game plan, and we have seen his game plan when he was at Cal and giving Easy and his Trojans fits. So we know his game plan is solid. And then he add on the caliber and quality of talent that he is able to put in at Texas, plus that game plan. I think he'll probably be running a dynasty similar to what Pitt had a while ago at D1AA, where he's just going to be ringing up these national titles. And the only way to probably stop him from taking those up will be through strength of schedule and the GD gods just screwing him over. Otherwise, I think we might have a new overload in Wilk. Though I would want to see him and Z32 go at it in the national title because Z and the way he runs his offense and the way Jason runs his, I think that'll be a good compare and contrast type game where you can kind of see what he all pass offense versus like a 60-40 type offense and see which one comes out on top because Jason is a great plan. Same thing with Z. I would want to see that one. Probably, I think there's a high likelihood that happens next season. You heard it here first. Jason goes back and he's going to be facing the Tide. So yeah, I'm going. I know it's early to be calling, who wins what or who makes it where before we even start recruiting. But I'm laying it all on the line right now. Jason and Z, and then Jason comes out on top.
Fair enough. Real quick interjection, guys. I'm not going to start another live thing unless somebody wants to call in or has something in chat because I don't want to have you guys follow. We already are up to like 4 links. We'll have this a little bit organized better next time. I wasn't sure if that 15 minutes would do it. We've already kind of established that in an earlier one. We will have this figured out next time when we do a live show, so you don't have to follow different links. But I'm not going to start another live one unless somebody calls in or posts something in chat or Slack that they wanted us to talk about. So you'll just have to wait for us to come out. We're about to end here with the live feed. We will continue, but the live feed's about to end. So unless anybody calls in, we're going to stop running the live feed on that. And I'm with you as far as Texas. I think Alabama has a shot. I mean, it depends if MP Marchand could keep this momentum going, and kind of hold off the Tide. We'll kind of see there. I was intrigued at how well Florida State actually did at holding off Texas's run. I mean, he still found pretty good success, but I mean, he averaged his main running back didn't even get 100 yards and still averaged under 4 yards per carry. So, I mean, that's still pretty good on that side of the ball. He just obviously with the passing attack in there too, he couldn't stop both. So I think that's tough for any coach. And I mean, Jason's got a lot of things figured out. I mean, anytime you're crushing teams in a national championship that bad, like you're in a league of your own. And I'm with you. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Nitros will give him a run for his money in recruits, and he'll make that division tougher. That Big 12 South, like we've talked about in a previous show, I think will be one of the best, if not the best division in all of Wilkinson once Nitros is up and running. But something obviously has to change, or Texas is going to continue to dominate. Whether that means the Big 12 South's full, whether that means someone goes into I don't know if Arkansas has a coach or not. I don't think so. Whether that means somebody goes into like Arkansas or, Kansas State or some of these areas that Texas might be kind of finding guys that are somewhat close to him, and then he has to challenge a little bit more because his game planning obviously by itself is good enough to win. And you add in there the fact that he's going to have some of the premier talent in Wilkinson, it's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, Baylor probably is another place where someone could jump in and maybe give him, some sort of competition for recruits. And with the way the classes are set up for Texas and Oklahoma, they never have like close to the same number of recruits, so they rarely bump into each other for recruits or battles. So things work out well for both of them, which means then it comes down to game planning when they face off with each other. And I think Blitz might be, tweaking his game plans to try and stop this run of getting beaten by Jason. And then, like you said, when Nitros gets up and running, I think things will be a little bit more interesting in the Big 12 South. Then to the north, Big 12 North, Jay, he probably is going to keep holding down the fort. I wonder if Geneva is going to stick around a little bit longer at Colorado and actually throw his weight around a little bit more because I think this is his first season with the Buffs, so you would expect that given enough time, he'll be able to build a proper program that will be able to challenge, and he might bump into Wyoming, so it might be the right time for Redhead to get out of Wyoming with someone over at BCS school in Colorado going for the same guy. So it'll all be interesting to kind of see how things shake out at the end of it all. But the Big 12 for me is probably the conference to be in. You have high caliber coaches all the way through over in the both conferences, Geneva, Dean, J9, V Howard, then you have Freeman, Blitz, Nitros, and we know what Cron is able to do. So, it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that one. Oh, and don't discount the Big Ten. Allen, probably starting next season onwards, is going to have things figured out. Then the one Southern Division, Kansas, Roxy, Notonis, and Airball. And speaking of Airball, Leeds was like hella confident he was going to keep his 18 win streak, level 4 ball game winning streak going. And then Airball was like, not today, and he managed to get one over him. So we fully expect the Big Ten South to be a hotbed of competitive games for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I agree with you. And guys, real quick before we wrap this up, sorry about the live feed. If I'd have known it was only 15 minutes before I started doing all this, I would have probably changed it, and we'll have things figured out the next time before we kind of go again. There's four of them out there, so if you kind of want to follow where the live was, you can do that. I don't think you really need to at this point, as we have recorded it at this point. We'll be posting that here shortly, but again, we'll have it kind of ironed out. Have you guys allow you guys a little better opportunity to call in and chat in ideas and things like that, and we'll kind of give you a little bit bigger notice. We kind of didn't this time just since we weren't sure really how things would work and things like that. But we'll do a little bit better job next time. So thank you for bearing with us this time. Sorry it's a little bit, hairy as far as trying to listen to those different live shows. But again, I think at this point you're okay to just listen to the video we'll post on YouTube. We'll have things figured out for you, I promise. And again, thanks for joining us today. Husker fan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Like always, stay out of Tennessee and surrounding areas for recruits, and all will be well in the world.
Fair enough. And again, congrats to all the national champions. Hope to see some of you guys move up to D1AA, a little bit into D1A, as that's still pretty full. But D1AA could definitely use some coaches. Otherwise, guys, good luck during the off season. Good luck during job changes and recruiting. And we'll have something for you, start of next season, during the off season, whenever we can find time. But again, thanks for listening, and everybody have a great day.